Are we making sound? Is it coming through the microphone? All right. It's a huge crowd already. We're gathering around. Look at this.
Outside, it's packed.
It's amazing. We're on Instagram Live, which is, I think, a mistake, but I'm going to do it anyways, you know. I don't do it for the money.
Cash. Green. I mean green cash.
No. I mean, I do it, like, isn't it kind of an off-green? I mean, it's not like leaves or some shit. It's very weird. It's not, I mean, it's not like a brownish color.
I like fighting number 2.
I know, I understand that, but I just think it's,
I don't want anything that's good.
all right. Well, you're gonna hate this show, if that's how you feel. Let's see.
They're going to be a country no more. I actually think it will not. It will be a country no more.
I can't argue with that. I don't even know what it means.
De-engineering.
Yeah, that's not the word. Finally, a day we don't talk about what's the bird?
The Burmese
Right.
executives. So
Yeah.
this Burmesia.
It's Burme-
Burmesia. They say.
How?
Pronounce it Burmesia.
Oh, okay, Burmesia. Jesus, I don't know. How are you even able to figure out how to pronounce that? I mean, what effort did you take?
I had a beat off.
Oh, okay, well, that's a weird way to learn how to pronounce a word, but I guess whatever works, I guess.
They said, "Oh,
Well, you know, vowels are easier than consonants for some people. All right, let's get ready.
Michigan gave us Motown. Gave us Motown. Gave us the Mustang.
All right, sure, why not? Meanwhile, while you're at it, why don't you give...
Free health care for illegal. Look.
All right. Oh, I don't doubt the Texas ball is fired up today. Is he with us today? I'm so... Let's see. I want to make sure I'm not missing... I think I know the situation is recording. I'm pretty sure. All right, we'll see. All right, let's do this. Hey, screw it. I'm just going to start. Come on now. This is show. Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the show. Obviously, the big news right out of the gate, and I will get to you guys in a second, is that the U.S. and the UK via air and sea were struck today by a bunch of dumbass headlines that completely are ahistorical and have no logical view of what's actually going on in the world at any given time. This is probably my favorite, and I think the best example of it, other than like KK Kalinski's morning anti-Jew prayer or whatever he calls his videos that he's putting out these days, basically saying that the U.S. and the UK are just pulling another Iraq. They're just letting the shit fly. Nothing happened. This is absolutely like, we got attacked on 9/11, so George W. Bush decides to attack Iraq apropos of fucking nothing, right? That's going to be the story. That's how we're taking this. After 27 attacks on civilian vessels, including the boarding of these ships and taking them, and the taking of like Japanese, Ukrainian, Filipino hostages on ships that weren't even from or headed to Israel, the U.S. And the U.K. said, knock it off 28 times. And then after the 28th time, oh, okay, excellent. What's up, Texas Paul? How you doing, brother? Then, after the 28th time of telling them to knock it off, they go to the UN Security Council, and the UN Security Council has a vote that strongly condemns the Houthi rebels to stop attacking ships in the Red Sea, because I got news for you. The ships that are going through that area where they may affect, parts of Europe and the like, and I guess overall you could think that they'll slow down aspects of the world economy, and therefore, America has a stake in that. The reality is our shit can go around, but the countries with the most starving people can't. So the idea is the Houthis have been doing this whole thing like, if you don't let guns into Gaza, we won't let food into Africa or fuel oil or anything else for that matter. So, yeah. So after the 28th time of going, hey guys, quit it. Hey guys, quit it. And after the Houthis attacked the ship for the second time, firing rockets at it, a civilian ship, by the way. These weren't battleships. These aren't armed ships. Fuckers on these boats, in some cases, depending on the country they're coming from or the country they're going to, they can't even have guns on board. They're not allowed. And these ships are getting boarded by, I am the captain now crowds that with AK-47s. Curiously, they never have U.S. or Israeli weapons. They always manage to have as many AK-47s as they can get their hands on and plenty of ammo. It's just weird that they just, it's just probably, maybe it's just where they shop. Perhaps. Oh yes, we're waiting on Crooks and Liars in the background. They will be here very, very soon. Our dear friends over there. So just for the record, let me explain this. It matters who's in charge. And by the way, if the Houthis had done the same shit after Hamas did the same shit in Israel and Houthis followed it up and Iran was like poking these guys like, hey, start fucking with everybody on behalf of Russia, or they're going to give us a bunch of shit. If they started doing that, the PNAC people would just pick up a book and go, okay, let's go for it. Let's fucking, who do we get to destroy? Let's just wipe, what countries don't we like? Let's just start strafe bombing these motherfuckers, right? Not targeted, not specific military sites, not the sites of the actual rocket launches. And again, I do not see them currently, so I don't know why. I want to make sure they have the right link. Hold on. I will copy that, and then I will give it to you to make sure that they have the right one. But yeah, they're not showing up in my little thing yet, Andrea. Thank you. There's just to make sure they have the right link for the one I'm in, the right room, because we had somebody go to another room of their own fabrication before, which happens. It's weird. You can type in your own shit. And then, yeah, there's the whole, it should be all right. So hopefully they'll be with us in a minute. I'm going to turn on the audio just in case. And if they pop in, I will hear them arriving. Here's the part that drives me crazy about this particular headline. Let's look at this logically. Okay. Let's look at this logically. UN Security Council demands Houthi rebels stop Red Sea attacks in vote that implicitly condemns Iran. Great. And then the follow-up article is, let's see if I can find these motherfuckers, is this guy right here. Quit moving around my computer. It's very stupid. There it is. This guy. U.S. military launches strikes on Houthis in Yemen, a major escalation in the Middle East conflict. Now, I don't know about you, but considering the Houthis had no particular dog in this fight at all, they might have sided with Hamas. They might, and they are certainly aligned with Iran, that's aligned with Hamas. And so they, technically speaking, are ideological brethren of these, but Yemen had not been hit. There was no escalation militarily towards them. There wasn't any kind of like, bullshit Putin excuse for NATO blockade-y kind of stuff. None of that, right? It was nothing. This is like, they weren't part of this battle at all. And they started opening fire on and attacking civilian ships in mass. They hit 27 ships. That I would call, war for war being what it is, an attack on 27 civilian ships, I would consider a major escalation. That's what I would call a major escalation. Now, if you have a different opinion about whether that's a thing, I would fucking well love to hear it. So Anybody else have an idea that the Houthis, who were not involved in this war at all on a material level, didn't decide, by the way, they did fire missiles at Israel. You know what the U.S. and our allies' response, mainly the U.S. doing it, though? What did we do? What did we do? Does anybody know? Anybody know what we did when the Houthis fired missiles at Israel? Anybody know? What do we do? What was our response? I'll give you a hint. We didn't bomb the Houthi-controlled areas of Yemen or any area in Yemen at all. We just shot them out of the fucking sky. That's it. We did respond, but we just shot them down. Our response was like just batting them away from the net, just goaltending, essentially. Like we didn't even, there was some finger wagging, but we basically just knocked it down. Yeah, they flew, and by the way, the Houthis have missiles that could reach Baghdad. The distance, by the way, they can reach Israel. They have missiles that will go that far. And what did we do in response? That's all we did. Didn't fire on Houthi areas. Nothing. What did we do when they captured a Japanese ship and took the crew hostage? We and the Japanese went to the UN Security Council and negotiated with both the Israelis and Hamas's representatives in Qatar to try and get them to release the Japanese, Filipino, and Ukrainian and Bulgarian crew members who were working on a fucking merchant marine ship. That's what we did. Did we bomb the Houthi areas during that? Did we? No, we did not. When they took fucking people from 5 different nations hostages. What did we do? What was the Biden administration's response? We negotiated. We went to the UN Security Council. And by the way, if you'll notice this time, there was no fucking wagging around of like yellow cake or some shit and arguing that the Houthis have, chemical and biological weapons, which by the way, they very well may have, but whatever the fuck. It wasn't even material. We're like, that's not our problem. Until they start gassing civilian ships, I suppose. What'd we do? Every possible measure. And then what did they do? They continued to attack vessels. They took another one hostage, and then they fired on U.S. military boats that were in the area that were protecting civilian craft. 90% of the ships containing food and fuel oil and products from the Middle East and the southern part of Europe and North Africa and all these, they go back and forth between these areas. 90% of that traffic has shut down. By the way, have you noticed that when 90% of that traffic is shut down, have you noticed a massive escalation in the cost of consumer goods in the United States? Did our producer price index go up massively when that happened? Did your Christmas buying go, oh, fuck, that's the Houthi cost? Did it affect us in that regard? Is it affecting you right now? Here they go. Oh, hey, I see. Oh, they're coming in the background. I see somebody. Look at that. Very exciting. Hold on. Now I get to start parking people in the background. I don't hear audio coming from you yet, but I do see you, and that's talk about a major escalation. Let's get there in a second. Are you going to be
hear any audio now?
Yeah, now I hear you. So are you going to be alone on your frame, or is he coming in separately on another account? Let me make sure I'm not running out of screen space. Is it just you, or?
No, it's just me.
Okay, good. All right. Excellent. Okay, 1 second. Then I will do this. Copying this in. And we'll talk about this in just 1 minute. Okay, I'm going to have to bring it in. Hold on, studio mode. There we go. I was so worried that we weren't going to end up having this happen. And there we go. Fix this and this. I always have to do like a little farming when we start getting guests on the show. And there we go. 1 second. Get paste. Excellent. Okay. There it is. And hold on 1 second. Transitioning over. Welcome. Look at that. Hey, it works. That's fantastic. How are you? Good to see you this morning. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing? It's
I'm
cold there.
spectacular. It's in Vegas. Yes, it is. It's cold everywhere right now. It's fascinating.
It's cold everywhere. It's
Yeah, yeah.
true.
So I was obviously, this is one of the big stories today, and I wanted the other story that I would love to talk with you about. And by the way, everybody needs to go to Crooks and Liars and just bookmark the page right now. Just do that and support the page overall. It's a great community. It's a great site. I personally think with a mild facelift, it could eat HuffPost's lunch. But I like its kind of old school 90s esque Daily Kos esque style. That said, but I'm just saying, a little AI spit polish, as easy as it is to do these days on the outer look of a site. I'm telling you, you could kick their ass. That said, mainly because there is a shortage on Crooks and Liars, I have noticed, of those ads that are simply weird clickbait ones that show you a picture of somebody that was attractive in a 19 or early 80s series and go, you won't believe what they look like now. Presumptively that this woman who was 23 at the time now looks like shit. I got to tell you, I have a chip on my shoulder about those ads. That said, here we go. So obviously I was just talking about the Houthi strikes, the strike in the Houthi areas, which are, very targeted. It seems so far. Nobody's arguing otherwise. The U.S. and Britain carried these out after strikes by the Houthis on U.S. and British ships in the area that were simply guarding civilian ships, which only became necessary because the Houthis have been attacking civilian ships. And
Right.
again, after a UN resolution, and that specifically blamed Iran, which was a weird thing. The vote obviously was overwhelmingly in favor of this. There were no votes against it. There were only abstentions. Shockingly, Russia and China abstained. Weird.
Shocking.
Yeah, just odd. And I'm sure that people will go, this is Biden getting us into another war. But right. That's the argument. So, anyways, your thoughts on just that news breaking this morning is yeah.
Well, I mean, it's been a long time coming. I've heard the reports about, the attacks on ships and the shipping lanes
Hmm.
for weeks.
Yep.
So, I
Months.
mean, to
November
me,
was when they took the Japanese guys hostage,
right. And
which
to
is
me,
yeah,
this is basically Biden and the UK saying, stop screwing around.
yeah. Enough is
We're
enough.
done.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Well, and again, it doesn't. This stuff, oddly enough, does not affect the American economy as much as it affects all these other economies in the world that are reliant on the stuff that's going through there, but also at a tipping point, some of them with somewhere between 20 and 150% inflation still reeling post COVID, barely getting on their feet, and goods start flowing again through this one particular area. And these guys decide that because the Israelis, by the way, are checking shipments of humanitarian aid into Gaza faster than the UN groups and the NGOs are presenting it. They are
Right.
literally the Israeli complaint at the Egyptian border and at the northern part, and I guess supposedly around the shipping is that, and the Egyptians have said this too, is that they're standing around with their thumb up their ass waiting for more stuff because they've already approved everything that's been brought through. Nothing is being
Right.
held up.
Right.
And yeah. And so the problem is, and I think where this story comes from, as far as they're holding up aid, is that they're not allowing aid directly from Yemen and Qatar and other places. Like they're just saying, fuck that. It's because it's stupid. It's the idea that they're going to do this is dumb. It comes through the UN. It comes through approved NGOs and countries that have worked in the area specifically for a long time, trusted sources, and there's plenty of it. That gets through. But these guys send in, bricks of shit, and they're trying to gack it up too. What you do is you send, if you want, in theory. If you want the bad news headlines or whatever that Israel is stopping aid coming in, what you do is you intentionally send in aid that has shit in it that makes them go, what the fuck is this? And that you intentionally slow it down so that they go, you're like, see that? They're not letting shipments through. Like, okay, this is half ammo. Fuck off. It's rice with bullets in it. Get the shit out of here. And they use that as an excuse when they never expected it to get through. It's a
Right.
fascinating, back and forth that's happening right now, and it's almost all PR. Is this the Trump uh like impact on world politics, that everything is a show now?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, for Trump, it's all a joke and a show, but yeah, it's infected other areas of the world for sure.
Right. Yeah, well, this idea that if your story about it is more powerful than the reality of it, you don't even have to bother to kind of back up the story later, right?
Right.
It's not even necessary. Hold on, I'm gonna yeah. Liars. I think we may have to bring on Texas Paul in the second hour, if Andre, if you want to arrange that, because people are calling out that he's got something to say. I think we'll get to that at one point. But the like currently there's a bunch of stuff going on, right? Like the ironic part for me is that um we have our own, fish to fry in the United States, and we have a lot of stuff that's going on, and it's the current chaos of the House Republicans right now, after they ripped out their speaker and installed Mike Johnson, this dipshit, in there, while the world is like it is right now. I mean, this is some serious normal shit. Again, the US and the UK are acting like fucking adults in this situation, in a very dangerous,
Mhm.
precarious, and complex situation. And the Republicans, like, I don't know, they're literally talking about motions to vacate Mike Johnson, and I can't
Again,
figure out. Yeah, I can't figure out who. Nobody else that they would want has the votes. What the fuck?
well, I mean, keep in mind they don't want anything to work. So
Right.
it's fine with them if they shut down the government. And I think the motion to vacate the chair would be their way of shutting down the government because he's agreed to the framework. And it would
Hmm.
pass. The budget framework would
Right.
pass, and there would be no uh,
No shutdown.
government
Right.
shutdown
Yep.
were it not for them shutting it down this way.
Right. And I have to say, like, I personally think that the Republicans that we currently have in office are sort of the ad absurdum obvious end of the road for the philosophy they've been living on since Reagan's "I'm from the government and I'm here to help you" bullshit in the 80s. And like, and I've said for a long time that the sort of raison d'etre of the Republican Party and their main campaign cry is, government can't do anything right, elect me and I'll prove it.
Right.
That
Elect me and I'll break it more.
Yeah, they're a self-serving. They're like a uh, yeah, they're like just I don't know if it's like a self-prophesying. What's the word for it? That they almost intend
Self-fulfilling
it.
prophecy.
Yeah, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They're like it's like The Secret turned awful. Like they literally,
Mhm.
like, the idea is like, he read The Secret. If I could imagine the world destroyed, it'll just fucking happen. And then it doesn't. They get all frustrated and go, well, I'm obviously going to have to do some work.
Yeah.
So Mike Johnson, and this is I'll transition over to this guy. Hold on one second. This is Mike Johnson's. This is the article on Crooks and Liars this morning. Oh no, guys, Mike Johnson's speakership is in trouble. Um, and I think you and I are in agreement. This whole Republicans can't govern. I totally agree. My thing is, I don't think they want to. I don't know how you even justify good governance if your entire belief system over the last 4 decades, 5 decades specifically, is about undermining governance as an idea. That they've gone from a party that was effectively like a consumer base. And hold on one second. Um, um, they've gone from a party that was sort of based on the business community and conservative principles of, like, okay, Mr. Gun the gas, I'm Mr. Tap the brakes. That's what conservatism was. They were the brake pedal to overwhelming progress. If you go too far down a road and you don't check the possibility that you may be wrong about it, you're gonna crash the car. So you can't be all gas and no brake. And they have, their response to it has been all brake. That they're now
Right.
the party of all brake. Break it and stop it, whatever it happens. And the can't govern part has switched over to, I believe, won't
Right.
govern. Um,
No, that's exactly right.
so how do you run on that? How do you right?
I mean, they
Grievance?
run on they run run and win because they're gerrymandered. They haven't had any policy position since 2020 when they
Hmm.
threw it all out
Right,
and said whatever Trump wants is what we were for.
right. And well, that's the again. There were a bunch of people, and I would call them the faux aggressives, that seemed, for whatever reason, to believe. This is the Susan Sarandon TYT crowd, where they're like, whatever it is that destroys this system is preferable to letting it exist. So fuck it. And in a really bizarre way, they have, and again, there's an ad absurdum version of that belief system, right? That is
Yes.
that it leads inexorably to blow it all up. And
Yes.
and right now there is a horseshoe theory going on. There's this mix, weird crisscross between what people would colloquially refer to as the far right and the far left, but also represents everybody from Glenn Beck to TYT, which I would think I would say the faux right and the faux left in that regard, right? That have overlapped and just decided on behalf of I don't know who the fuck the constituency for destroying the country is, um, other than Vladimir Putin um, like Xi Jinping and the Iranian mullahs. I don't know who that makes sense for. And I think the best example of it that I've seen is Kyle Kalinske talking about the Houthi attack this morning. Sitting doing his show in bed, fucking in bed, surrounded by a bunch of pillows from Pottery Barn, with a fresh bleach job and a coiffed beard, laying back in on the warm side of a bay window, talking about America bad. And again, I don't. This is the hard part for me, and maybe you can explain this. I think it's valuable to criticize your government. That's why I think America is good in that regard, because you can shit on it all you want, and you won't die.
Hmm.
And look at Alex Jones. He's alive and fat and bloated and sweaty and gacked up on
And
God
rich.
knows what, right? Nobody's
Yeah.
nobody's offed him. The Pentaveret, the Illuminati, the deep state hasn't come and got him yet. You can do it,
Not yet.
right? Yeah,
Yeah.
right. I don't think they ever will, for the record. But for some reason, these motherfuckers are like, and it's, again, you should go after the bad parts of your government. You should criticize. That's the purpose of democracy. That's what makes it superior, I think. But there's a difference between thinking my country is flawed and needs work, and a version where you're like, my country is the seat of all evil in the world, and everything we do I will automatically assume is bad, and yet you stay here.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's not America, love it or leave it. That's America is a serial killer, but they pay my rent, so I'm going to live with them and keep my mouth shut when the trial starts. It's fucking mind-boggling.
Oh, absolutely. And they're as crazy as Alex Jones, some of these guys. I mean, they're
Yeah.
just but I mean, it all comes the horseshoe theory is true, but
Hmm.
but I have a theory too that a lot
Okay.
of the agitation right now
Hmm.
and the breaking of government is to get everybody to say the Constitution sucks. We need to have a constitutional convention.
Right.
And 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 that would be a disaster. And that, I mean, that Charlie Cook has hoped for years
Hmm.
and funded for decades.
Right.
So, you know, you
Yeah,
remember that when
yeah, I agree. I really do think though that those guys are jogging in mud with that idea, and they're never gonna.
I
It's
hope so.
never gonna fucking get off the ground. The attempts at it, what it means is like, there's sort of an extremist pathway where you shoot for the moon and then you get minor advances in your ideology or whatever, and the idea that like hyper veganism has led to an awareness of vegetarian alternatives to things over time, but it's taken the
Mhm.
crazy vegans and the pitas of the world to get the average person to kind of join humane society and that kind of stuff. There's that softer version
Yeah,
of all causes. And so the extremists, I've always said, when they, for the record, don't engage in political violence, the people who live the, they walk the talk and they live inside whatever that philosophy is to the absolute extreme. What everybody says when they see them is, okay, they seem to be thriving or they seem to be doing better in some areas. So I will take what works of that and incorporate it. And extremism on both sides of the political spectrum, or all sides, I think there's probably actually a 5-point political direction. That's what people don't see. It's not opposing left and right directions. It's very
right.
weird that way. It's just it fails the conversation. But let's just say, for that analogy that works, that the people who've walked in the extremes in either way, there are elements of those things that over time people are like, okay, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and okay, that's not going to work for everybody, but it'll work for somebody. And if it helps somebody, then I'm willing to go a little bit further because I care about helping people. Or the other people, like on the right, it would be that hurts the right people. It doesn't wipe out the problem, but it hurts enough of the bad people that I don't like, that I will go a little bit that direction. And so the tug and pull has been around that. Now it just seems like there's capture on the right.
Right.
Now, Jesus Christ, like the overlap between what Don Jr. says and at rallies for Donald Trump and what Alex Jones says is, I mean, Vivek Ramaswamy is practically an InfoWars candidate more than he's
Absolutely.
right. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
QAnon,
yeah,
InfoWars, all of that. Yeah.
right. That
Mhm.
it's just and I think it's because ideologically they just lit the fuse on this rocket on this, and just it's not a guided missile. It's just going to follow the physics of the fuel that's in it. And that they lit it in fucking 1982, or maybe around the fucking, I don't know, the Kennedy assassination part of it, whatever their, or Nixon having to resign, and whatever their set point in their own mentality was for the government is bad and we need to go after it, and they'll just
Mhm.
sort of side with anybody to bring it down. It does not matter, even if that person, in the case of Donald Trump, is a pussy grabbing
Fascist?
clarified, yeah, yeah, right, sexual assaulter, a buddy of Jeffrey Epstein's for 2 fucking decades. They're just like, yeah, no, no, no. As long as he keeps that missile headed in the right direction, that it's inevitably going to, which is crazy town.
Yeah.
I'll back him. It's weird. Did you hear about the? Yeah, I'm sure you've heard about the Texas story where the Texas is blocking Customs and Border Patrol from areas of the border,
Yeah.
and because they where they can't guard the border, they cannot stop people coming through the border. And the reason they're doing it is because the Customs and Border Patrol are cutting the concertina wire because it will kill people. Because if anybody comes across the water at nighttime in the dark, they'll get caught in fucking concertina wire and be shredded. Razor wire is what it's called. And and
Yeah.
it'll and it's illegal. It's on the fucking Mexican side. We can't put concertina wire on the border of another country illegally. There's a legal
Right.
reason why we can't do that,
Right.
right? And so to stop them from doing this, Greg Abbott is stopping Customs and Border Patrol from stopping immigrants who are walking around Trump's wall because it ends at Indian land.
Right.
I'm gonna
Well,
guess you're gonna need,
and
like, yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
the other reason that they don't want Customs and Border Patrol agents to intercept immigrants is because they're asking for asylum, and to do that, they have to surrender themselves to a
Hmm.
Customs and Border Patrol agent. So
Right.
if they can block that, then those people can't get asylum. So
Right.
it's all of a piece of demonizing people who are desperately in need, and with children and everything. I
Hmm.
mean, I saw something today that said that Greg Abbott would shoot them if
Yes.
it was legal. I
Right.
mean, what is the matter with these people? And
Well,
then they
that's
go
the
and praise God on Sundays. I
yeah,
I I
exactly.
just
It is very weird that well, Trump brought this up, and so again, this goes to that kind of super extreme. Like he's talking about bombing fucking Mexico, and so
Mhm.
it's de-escalatory in Abbott's mind to just shoot
Shoot 'em.
individuals, right?
Yeah,
Secondly, the number of migrants, by the way, at the U.S. border has dropped from 10,000 a day in December to 500 a day. Like the process that they're dealing with, the U.S. government. So Biden, most people don't even fucking know this, and I don't know what. Well, I kind of know why on like Fox isn't talking about it, but I don't know why anybody else isn't. That the U.S. government, the State Department in particular, has been talking to Mexico and providing them with funds and doing some other stuff, and also basically arguing as part of our, the same kind of conversations Trump had about securing the border allegedly, but without threats and intimidation, looking at it as a partnership, which it absolutely is, because Mexico is hurt by this invasion of people, the quote unquote invasion of people, as much as anybody else, because most of them stop in Mexico. They speak Spanish. Literally the job base in Mexico is getting so solid that there are Mexicans going, they're taking our jobs. Like the parallels are hilarious if they weren't
yeah,
so sad. But what are
right.
the Mexican government right now started this about 3 weeks ago, is that they are taking people who illegally came through their country and are busing them back to the southern border of their country, and that they are, instead of blocking the northern part, which is what Trump asked for, and had, these soldiers had been there for a long time, blocking the border up there. The Biden administration said, these aren't Mexicans. If you're going to help us with troops, put them on your southern border. Then
Right.
you can vet the people who are coming through. And I don't know why this isn't getting more news, but that's why the number dropped from 10,000 to 500. That's it. That's
Right.
100%. That and the weather, I
Yeah.
would suppose. I'm sure we're entering into a very cold snap. The Texas power grid is again in danger. Um, what are the and here's, I guess, my question for this hour for you is like, what do you think the sort of big five stories will be for the year, leading into the election? Both, you know, important stories and sort of bullshit stories that we're gonna see, in your opinion.
Oh, okay. Well,
Yeah.
bullshit story will be Hunter Biden.
Sure.
I
Sure.
mean,
Yeah.
that'll be the big one, and it'll be not only his indictments here, but also his, so-called involvement with, funding the family.
Right. Right. The Biden crime family, which I would argue sounds about as frightening as the Apple Dumpling Gang. Um,
Exactly.
right.
So that's going to be a big story. I think that abortion is going to continue to be a big story in the news,
Yep.
because women aren't going to put up with what these right wingers have in store for them.
Hmm.
So that'll be a big story, and it'll drive it. Obviously, Ukraine and
Hmm.
Israel are going to continue to be big stories, and I hope that there's some resolution in both of those. But
Right.
I don't know. And uh, and the border. I mean that we right wingers will make the border a big story, whether it is or it isn't. And for example, Fox News just loves to talk about how a zillion pounds of fentanyl were seized at the border. See, and it's
Right.
like, wait, they were seized. That
Yeah.
that means that they're doing their job.
Yeah. Well, that's the same thing to, as far as like encounters at the border. To us, encounters at the border going down because, according to Republicans everywhere, there's enough staff down there. There's enough CPB agents, except I guess in the areas that Greg Abbott is not allowing them to go. But that
Right.
it's not, the encounters are, you saw them, whether you stopped them or not, included. And to us, just like the seized amount of fentanyl crossing the border, the number of encounters going down means fewer people are crossing the border. But to the Republicans, what that means is when you seize more fentanyl, it means way more is coming in, and you must not be, if you're, that's what the number is always 10%. No matter what the amount is, it's always 10% unless Trump's in charge, in which case it's 100%. If
Right.
the same seizure of the amount of fentanyl crossing the border came in during Trump physically, the 20 kilos, whatever the fuck it was, that's 100% of the fentanyl that tried to come across the border. If Biden seizes the same 20 kilos, which is the same amount in the greater amount, it's 10%. That's the argument. That they're always, and the same thing is true of crossings. You keep hearing about gotaways. It's all fucking, what about the gotaways? The ones we don't even know about. I don't know, pass a fucking immigration bill so we have infrared cameras and sensor stations all along there. We'd know exactly how many people came across.
Right.
Also, Google Maps. You don't think we have a satellite view of our fucking border? Honestly,
I mean, there's a lot of ways to surveil it. And,
right?
though, I have to add one more story to the list
Yeah.
that I gave you, and
Okay.
that's the Trump trials. Those will be big too.
Yes, certainly. I gotta say, I've been watching his collapse, whether it's sundowning or stress or a combination of both. At that age, neither one is good. He's clearly got, has had for years signs of age-related confusion and the like, which comes to everyone, but his are particularly pernicious and very weird. The town hall answers he gave to
Mhm,
Brett Baer and Blonde Number 7 at Fox were particularly odd and rambling. All he
mhm,
kept doing was giving people who were on the fence reasons to vote for their other choice repeatedly by sort of attacking even the idea of their question, which instead of saying he's the answer to their question. It's so fucking odd. And that whole like leaning forward thing, and he's a sweaty fucking mess in
yeah,
all of these things. And I think the size, I don't know why, but there are a lot of politicians over the years that shine when they glad hand. That when they give,
mhm,
they may not be, Barack Obama when it comes to giving a speech to a giant group of people, right? But
mhm,
when it comes to like the retail politics, they're fucking rock solid. And Biden is one of those guys. Biden is way
exactly.
fucking better one to one, even when he's catching shit and giving it back one to one, like the guy who was like wanting, no gun registration, all this stuff. And the guy was like talking to him when he got in the guy's face about the assault weapons ban, shit like that. He got very Irish, as we say, in
Mhm,
that moment. Even that is more direct and real than kind of, he's not talking to the press, talking to a person. And he's, he'll listen to people's stories if they've, been through pain or they've got an economic issue, and he'll sympathize with them and he'll relate a story of his own so he knows they know where he's coming from and that he's not just some rich politician, all that shit. Trump,
mhm,
on the other hand, is doing neither. He used to be good at giant crowds. He's
right.
now, they've got him in these shitty little rooms. And I think that's having more of an effect on his stress level and his collapse. The size of the rooms, it
Mhm,
is more of a problem in physical stress for him than the lawsuits that he's going through and all that shit, or the fact that he's not getting, how he addresses them, because he gives the same speech basically. I mean, it starts to become a bitch fest if the room is like, there's like almost a number, like 500 people, I'll give half a speech and bitch about my issues in the law.
right.
200 people, it's like a dinner party with, a bunch of rich donor types. And I switch into that mode, which is 80% bitching about myself. And then, like in these small little gatherings, he's just reading the Cliff Notes, that fucking little Republican group he was in. Like he was just kind of almost, he wasn't even saying the whole point. He was just saying like the words, like border, best
Yeah.
economy, Iran, bombs, nukes, nuclear war. You couldn't even say nuclear. Putin, she, smart. Like it was like this weird. I think him walking into a room and seeing 212 people,
Mhm,
doesn't make him feel like I'm pressing the flesh. I'm getting close to the people that I represent. He goes, fuck, every time.
yeah.
fuck.
Yeah.
This is,
Well, he
yeah,
wants to be worshipped. That's why he likes the big crowds. I mean,
right.
so,
He's
and most of those big crowds are the same people. They just follow him around.
right. That's the other thing. The fucking the fucking front row Joes, right?
Hmm.
And sometimes he points them out, and then it seems like other people in his staff tell him to either knock it off, or he realizes that bringing up the fact that half the crowd is at all these things and none of them are from fucking Iowa or New Hampshire, that they drove there from God knows fucking where, like they're in some weird MAGA sequel to that Francis McDormand movie about people who live in their in their Winnebagos, right?
Yep.
He's like, oh shit. Not only is it like half full, half of the half are people who aren't even going to be able to caucus or vote here. They've heard this
Right.
before.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't, yeah. I honestly don't know how people, I think that's going to have a bigger impact on him than, I think the financial trial scared the fuck out of him because that's the root of his entire ego. Being a criminal in his world, kind of cool.
Yeah.
Look at Gotti,
That's
all those
kind of
people.
cool until you're actually faced with going to prison.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then maybe it's not so cool after all. And I'm waiting for that day.
I love how you immediately start talking like an 80s after school special. You might think being a criminal is cool, but it's not as cool when you find out what happens when you're criming, which is true. And the fact that Trump is a grown man uh, would w- uh, would have a moment where he's in prison and the shitty television in there is just airing old 90s. There's some like marathon of 80s after school specials, and
Right?
where it's like, don't be a criminal, Johnny, or you'll end up in a very bad place. Or watching Scared Straight marathons. Why didn't somebody tell me? Why did someone not tell me? I thought you. Everything I ever saw is that once you go to jail, you slice garlic really thin with your best buddies in a kitchen that they let you use. And like Jeffrey Epstein, you get to let yourself out of jail because they give you your own key on Monday. Again, maybe that's what happens when you skip uh, like normal growing up. Maybe that's what. Maybe this is like. Maybe he's got affluenza. Maybe we're actually coming to the fact that if there's ever been a case for affluenza where someone being raised in a gold laminated, like I don't know, gold spray painted world,
Yeah.
that they refuse to scratch for finding out that the gold isn't real, uh, that they don't experience all the lessons the rest of us did, which is like don't shoplift, and then suddenly you wake up one day and you're one of the Moms for Liberty ladies. I'm sure you saw that one recently. We lost a second Mom for Liberty. For those that don't
Yes, we
know,
did.
she was busted for 7 counts of shoplifting from
Yep.
Target.
Hey,
And
when they say liberty, they mean
oh
all
yeah,
liberty,
I'm
right?
gonna liberate these Entenmann cookies and
Right.
liberate these sunglasses, because you know what she was doing, and this this is a fucking like loss prevention being what it is. This is a huge thing. She was going to the self checkout and
Mhm.
not swiping like half the stuff, so or like 2 items per trip. So she'd take a trip and then she'd go bleep bleep, and like she just feed one into the bag without bleeping it. You've
Yeah.
used those, right? I use them all the
Yeah.
time. There's a fucking camera, dum dum. It's right
Right
there.
there.
It's right there, and the other cameras on it can see the rest of you. There's like 5 fucking angles. What do you think? You think they actually trust people to pay for shit? What? I wouldn't. Jesus Christ.
No.
Why do you think stores put people at the counter in the first place hundreds of years ago? We used to have a
Right.
bucket, if you take an apple, put a nickel in the thing or whatever. And then we noticed a bunch of people didn't drop their fucking nickel. Okay, Gary, your job, you're going to stand there and make sure people put their fucking nickel in the bucket, right? And then the people came up and were like, "Hey, I want an apple, but how much are those bananas?" The guy goes like that, and then they run off with the fucking apple. And all right, fuck this. You're gonna take the nickel from the person before you give them the thing. Like these rules were created
Right.
because people can be assholes. This is I don't know where. Okay, so on our last note, I want to remind everybody. And I want to thank Kelly for being with us today. And everybody go to crooksandliars.com and follow them and all that. And I'm not just saying that because they gave me a Crookie Award, which was lovely.
Our favorite crookie.
Oh, well, again, I really do feel like we have a lot to be positive about. And I straight up am not going to abide by any kind of bullshit where people are bitching about Biden for stuff he doesn't earn. If you have a problem with what he's actually doing and you can give me evidence of why it's an actual thing, I'll hear you. Absolutely. But if you're going to talk about, Biden in terms of Israel and Gaza or Ukraine or something like that in the same like mental space as somebody talking about the fucking Hunter Biden laptop or a bunch of made up bullshit, or you're just using large blather words over shit, then go fuck yourself. Like if we can't be the ones who are constantly saying trust the science, and I want to hear evidence, or we have evidence against Trump, and then them calling just information evidence. No,
Right.
that's not how it works. My standard is consistent through everything. I am not, as a political philosopher, going to not scan some of the items. I'm not going to shoplift political ideologies. I'm not going to participate in that shit. I'm going and I'm not going to go the press are the enemy of the people just because I have problems with certain headlines over others. I'm going to call out those headlines and those words, and we'll do that. So, anyways, thank you so much for being on today. We love the site and we love you guys. So keep up the good work, and I'll see you soon, I hope.
Yep. Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks for
Yeah.
having me. Bye.
Absolutely. Cheers. Thanks, Carolee. Hold on one second.
Hey,
I'll let you go
bye-bye.
peacefully. There you go. Cheers. Bye. Yay, she managed to get in there. There we go. And then I'm going to get our dear friend Texas Paul coming in here. Hold on, Tex. Oh, there he is. Okay, hold on. I gotta put him in here. Which requires. There we go. Take this. And then we go to here, and we cut and paste a little bit. Okay. And let's see, once I bring him in here, hold on. I have a special treat for Texas Paul. Before I bring him in, I worked on this. Hold on one second. Yeah, give me 1 second. I pull this over here, put this in there. There it is. And then I have to do one thing. Filters. It's a little bit of housekeeping, but I literally made something just for Texas Paul the other day because we love him. And let's see if this actually works. So drag it down to here. There we go. This one. And turn that guy off. Now we'll see if it works in this regard, but give me 1 second. And then I have to loop it. That's the problem too. One click, and here we go. And then I'll turn on his audio so you can all hear him. We can hear him in the background. And then let's see. Let's see if this works. Hold on. There it is. Fucking A right, it works. Ladies and gentlemen, Texas Paul with his new Texas flag background that I made specifically for when he comes on the show. Welcome, sir. How are you?
Wonderful. I am wonderful. Good to see you. Good to see you, my friend.
Good to see you too. I got to say, obviously lots of stuff going on today. Plenty to talk about or whatever, but I want you to know, I spent time, goddammit, making a special Texas flag background just for Texas Paul when he visits. I have had a hell of a time trying to come up with a background for Boston Brian that doesn't involve Berklee School of Music, crabs, or plumbing. So I am torn to pieces. We got to figure out what his favorite team is, and I can just throw up their fucking flag at this point. But Texas we can take care of. So thank you for being with me, my brother. How are you? Apparently everybody
Wonderful.
thinks you were on fire this morning, and you wanted to, and I wanted to hear it too, because I didn't get a chance to hear what you were on fire about in particular, because there's so much to be on fire about.
Yeah. You
Yeah.
know, you got to, I don't know about you. I'm not much of a drinker. I'm not.
I have never had
I'm
an
not a
alcoholic
teacher.
beverage in my life. I have never done any drugs, and I have never smoked. Ever, ever, ever. Not ever. Just for the
Well, there
record.
was a time in my life I made up for you, but
I appreciate that. I thank you for picking up the slack.
but
I
I
would
don't.
hate to. I
I'm
would
not
hate to wreck America's curve. Fuck the bell curve, as worse than I already do.
Yeah, I'm not a, you know, don't get me wrong. I'm not a teetotaler. You know, will have a alcohol, but I'm not much of a drinker. I'm really not. I got a case of beer I bought like last summer. I still got like a couple in the fridge. I mean,
Right.
you know, so I'm not, anyways, Mrs. Texas Paul has been slipping Tennessee whiskey in my coffee all morning because apparently I kind of
the blow. Right.
Yeah, because apparently I got a little bit irate today on the show, man.
That's all right.
But yeah, the news that's out there is just freaking enraging. But you know, I mean, I don't know which part you want to talk about, but I mean, we covered the Yemen thing, we covered Farty Marge, we covered everybody.
Right.
I mean, it was just
right.
And the more I talked about it, the more pissed off I got.
Sure.
And it just kind of went over the top a little bit today. So
I hear you. No, okay. So first of all, let's talk about the attacks on the Houthi areas in the response to, again, 27 attacks on civilian ships by the Houthis, and all we did was bat them away. In one case, there was some Houthi pirates that tried to take a ship for the second time in 6 hours, I think it was. And the ship called for like a mayday. They called to, you know, for support when the U.S. ship showed up to help protect them because they were being attacked by these rebels. The rebels fired on the American ship and found out because the U.S. ship did not fire first.
Even more than that, they got on the radio and said, "Please leave."
Right.
You can see us, right? You can see us, right? We're here. Please leave.
Yes.
And they're like, well, we'll show you, America. And they fired on the helicopter that was there. And it's like, okay, I'm in a fiberglass boat.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into a pissing contest with a Cobra attack helicopter? I don't think so.
Oh, there were four boats. Let's also parse this out. 4 boats. 3 were sunk that day. The 4th was allowed to flee. Like they didn't fire on that ship on the boat that left. That in and of itself, in the rules of war being what they are, the belief that you know how much charity it takes to believe that a group of guys who were attacking civilian ships, who were in the middle of attacking a civilian ship, and then fired on a military ship, that when they left, they weren't just repositioning or going back or heading for another target to distract you down that way. Dozens of reasons for you to think these guys aren't retreating. They're just going somewhere else to kill some other people. Where you have in the engagement in the rules of engagement in a war, you can just fly after them and dust them because what are you going to take for granted? They're like, there was no white flag. They didn't throw their guns overboard. They didn't, shut down their engine and start rowing. They fled in a military ship with military weapons that they had previously been shooting at you. And still, our military and our soldiers went, bye, and went back and landed on their ship and didn't kill these guys that were in a boat. For fuck's sake. Again, we suck at genocide. We suck at it. We're terrible at genocide. We're never going to get the practice we need without Trumps and Bushes in office. And
yeah, I try to explain to people all the time. I get these TikToks all the time. They're like, Israel's committing genocide. America's supporting genocide. And it's like, let me explain something to you folks. The military capacity of Israel, they make some of the best weapons. We buy smart bombs from Israel. Right. They're really freaking good at this. Okay. Mm-hmm. If Israel was trying to kill everybody in Gaza, that war would have been over October 8th.
It would have been over in 95. The population of Gaza has grown every year for the last decade. and
one of the
is
fastest growing populations on Earth.
right. And this is one of the statistics I heard about what's currently happening in Gaza that I found stunning. There have been more 500 or 200-pound bombs dropped. I guess you could include 200-pound bombs and bigger dropped in Gaza. There have been more of those bombs dropped than there have been civilian casualties. 1-to-1, 28,000 of these effectively bunker busting bombs on certain sites. And there have been, according to Hamas again, and I don't take their, but again, if you just believe the absolute number, nobody's fighting, even the guys who are holding rocket launchers and are 35 years old. All those guys, they're all civilians. You take it, the more civilian, if you say all of them are civilian casualties, 22,000. There have been more 200-pound bombs dropped in Gaza than there have been individual deaths. And it is, again, one of the most densely populated places on Earth. The number is supposedly 22,000 civilians. 28,000 of those rounds, those munitions, have been dropped. If the goal is eradication, if the goal is genocide, if you're not aiming those fucking things, how do you hit less people than you drop bombs? And they're huge. I mean, these are not. I'm not talking about rounds fired. That's because again, look at October 7th. I'm sure that the Hamas, in many cases, and you can watch the videos they posted online, used a lot more rounds to kill some of the women they sexually assaulted than they needed. The women were dead already after the second bullet, but they just kept firing until they were shredded. So the idea that somehow, that the bunker buster bombs and the ones that they are bombing the buildings with, because these are facilities that Hamas has used. I don't know how people match up the genocide word with those two statistics. 22,000 dead in total. And again, if you just want to call them all civilians, right? And 28,000 bombs dropped total, right?
It is. You have in Jakarta, Indonesia, is just like St. Petersburg, Russia. You have a massive troll farms in Jakarta. That's why X-Chan turns into such a shit show right around 8 o'clock in the evening, Central Time.
Right.
Because that's when the troll farm, that's 9 o'clock in the morning in Jakarta. That's when the troll farms come online.
That's where the guy from Q, the guy who was running the Q server, lived there. Lived in Indonesia and then moved to the Philippines, and then he was in Thailand for a little while. All that, basically that general area, they would run these farms out of there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's why you're getting this nonsense. And that was my whole point. I didn't mean to get off Yemen, but that was my whole point, is you have this fiction, this nonsense, this bubble that these people live in that is filled with garbage. And then there's the reality of the Houthis that are thinking, oh man, we're winning. We're doing something here. And then they targeted our warships. They targeted our warships. No, it doesn't work that way. No. It does not work that way. We will sit there, we will swat your missiles down when you're not targeting us. But on January 9th, they fired just tons of anti-ship missiles, dumb rockets, cruise missiles. They launched boats out of Hadida. They tried to attack our ships. Oh no! And so the president did what he's obligated to do and legally entitled to do, which is he decimated the Houthis' ability to strike in the Red Sea.
Right.
That's simple. And then you've got Fardy Marj and terrorist Tlaib and the rest of these jackasses are attacking our president, which the headline would have been had he not responded. Oh,
of course, that's
President
the other
Biden's
part.
a eunuch.
Yes. Right. Yeah. That we're the story on right wing YouTuber on the mill blog right wingers is that Biden's encouraging these people by being weak. Right. And this is the back and forth. And by the way, these strikes had nothing to do with that conversation. I got news for you. The Biden administration doesn't give much to the chagrin of some people, doesn't give a rat fuck about the public perception about a lot of these actions. or they would have just changed course a dozen times on things. I'll switch over to real quick to this business, if I may. Just real, here we go. Let's try and get this. Sorry to lose your flag there for a second, Texas Paul, but
no worries.
These are the Houthis, by the way. These are the Houthis. And anybody recognize that hand symbol? Anybody recognize what those guys are doing with their hands? You see that? You see that? That is the Houthis. That's not the Yemenis. We're not talking about just Yemeni, and we didn't bomb Yemen. We bombed the Houthi territories, which to them is Houthi. Like, it's the land of the guy who started this shit. And they are in this video chanting death to America, curse the Jews, death to the Jews. And it's like a rabble that they roll off. Like, they have this kind of like rap, kind of like Allah Akbar, that they just kind of say in a run, like I say the WCPT shit that I say when I'm on the radio. Like, they can just prattle it because it's almost like a verbal tick. This morning, Marianne Williamson was defending these folks.
So was Cori Bush. So was Marjorie Taylor Greene. So was Trader Tlaib. So was Ro Khanna. So was just disgusting, man.
Look, the Houthis, and insofar as I know, still have Japanese hostages. They still have people that they're holding hostage, that other countries are negotiating the release of their own hostages that the Houthis took from those boats. And if they tried to, which adds an extra element to this, they have boarded boats and taken the whole boat. They have boarded boats and taken the crew hostage, which means they're not just diverting ships or firing on ships to slow down traffic in that area. Every ship they approach, the assumption has to be, if they seize it, they will take the people on board, civilian, men and women with families who talk about having a fucking blue collar hard job, being a merchant seaman, on these boats, like a merchant marine, is fucking work. Like that. Jesus Christ. And add on top of that,
24/7 job, man.
Right. Can just shoot at you and or take you hostage, and your family's just got to suck it up because Israel or something, which is, again, unrelated to the physical safety of Yemen or the Houthi area.
Well, people, if you're watching this, go Google starvation in Yemen. The Houthis are starving. People don't understand this region. They talk a lot, but they don't understand shit. These are not national countries like we think of countries. Here, me and Hal, we don't live in the same place, but we're both Americans first. If first, then I'm Texan, then I'm, you know what I mean? It's not that way in Yemen. They are tribal. Same thing in Sudan. Same thing in it's a conglomerate. It's a confederation of tribes, and the most powerful tribe runs the country.
Your country is secondary to your tribe, right? Which is what I would argue the maggots are trying to do. Like they think of America first as above the American flag. That's why they thought they could attack cops protecting the Capitol. You have to believe you're above the country to attack the country from within.
To tear down the country's flag and put Trump's flag up in its place.
Or fucking attack a police officer with the actual flagpole that has the flag on it, for fuck's sake. And to, by the way, sharpen it before you leave the house. One of the things that we keep dusting over, and you and I both know we'll get fucking distracted into a goddamn hole if we start chasing every hypocritical, bizarre thing about the Republicans. Some of these motherfuckers brought flags with them to the Trump rally, and they had spent time at home sharpening the tip. What? Who the fuck does that? Talk about premeditation. Some of them, the ones that are getting like 10, 12, 20 fucking years, the reason they're getting that is because they showed video in court of these motherfuckers bragging as they sharpened the tip, or they show the flag and they're like, well, that's gonna hurt, like that kind of stuff. Like, it's premeditated. That's premeditated assault on a police officer. You were planning on showing up that day, and if not killing a cop, stabbing one of your fellow Americans you have a political disagreement with a fucking flagpole. Right. They brought hornet spray. David G pointed that out. Yeah, they brought hornet spray, bear spray.
Hal, can you
Jesus.
please stop bad mouthing the hostages, please?
Sorry, that's right. My bad. I'm sorry. They haven't. Yeah, until they get their due process, which apparently is what their 5th fucking bail hearing before their 3rd sentencing hearing after they've been found guilty because they filmed themselves criming. What the fuck? So, other than that, I have no opinion. The other thing is obviously that, you know, this part of it, this is the kind of stuff where, again, it matters who's in charge. The amount of effort that Blinken and Biden and the State Department in general and went to the UN and went through all this shit before any of this stuff happened, while we were literally just going, all right, okay, just knocking these fucking Houthi missiles out of the air and drones so that they don't strike civilians in Israel, right? The amount of shit we went through with that stuff before, you know, they even shot back. Our guys waited till the ships fired on them. They were firing on the civilian craft, but our guys didn't fire on those guys till they fired first. The restraint that we're... Yeah, Jesus.
I loved Biden. I love Biden's response. His statement to it was basically, look, you fired at us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So we took out your ability to do that. And as far as we're concerned, we're good.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the end of it. We're done. Unless you do something stupid.
Yep.
Then it's going to get worse.
Right.
And I was like, perfect. I mean, because the Saudis, they're trying to control the same people that freaked out about us being in Riyadh, near, their beloved Medina. They were trying to, they're dealing with that crowd, their version of MAGA.
Right. Well, the Houthis
and they're trying to say
anti-Saudi. They're a pro-Iranian militia on the border of Saudi Arabia. And again, if there's a single reason for us to move to renewables more than any other, is the fact that we as Americans, if we maxed out our capacity and drilled all we fucking wanted, the max capacity that we could put out of oil, period, end of story, without destroying our waterways and polluting our towns like fucking the industrial ring around Beijing, is about 19 million barrels a day. And we use 21. So here's the idea. Stop using 3 million barrels a day of oil. You don't have to stop using all of it, but the day you stop using 3, we don't have to care about a ton of this shit. And the fact that Republicans are against renewables, it points to just the hypocrisy about them not actually giving a rat fuck about any of this. Like, it's all show.
I'm going to say, man, we've got to care. We do. Because look, if you look at Libya, you look at Sudan, we don't have dogs in that fight. We're not in those countries. We're not backing either side. All we're doing, we're the idiots sending aid in that's getting used by the freaking terrorists.
Right.
That's U.S. aid. That's where we are in Sudan.
That's right.
The end result is that's a failed terrorist state. And we have no relationship with them whatsoever. They're going to end up being another Afghanistan where they're training terrorists. So we've got to stop being this high road country that says, oh, these are bad guys. We can't get involved in that, because Russia doesn't have that problem.
No. Well,
they don't have that moral quandary.
The Wagner
some places, guys I'll just say this. There's some situations where there are no good guys. But you have to be involved anyways. You do. Because if you don't, you create security concerns for yourself down the road. It's just...
Well, that's, even then, like the question then is, this is what the State Department is for and what they wrestle with all the time. Which part do you, you're not going to, we're well past the enemy of my enemy is my friend part. Nobody buys that as a doctrine anymore. And in anything outside a resource war where you're eventually going to eat those people too, it's useless. As a doctrine for somebody who is like, they have the farmland, we need the farmland, these guys are trying to attack them, so we'll let them attack them and support them in attacking them so that we can take the farmland later. Well, we're going to have to take it from the people that we helped in the first place. That kind of resource war is where that ideology came from. It doesn't apply in how the U.S. extends our influence in the world, because we use democracy to do it. Democracy is you have to have stability in that country that we don't have to police the entire time, or it won't work. So, you know what I mean? We can't set up Afghanistan's all over the world on behalf of Exxon. That idea never floated, and even if it did, it's antithetical to who we are. Meanwhile,
you can't.
Sudan,
you're right. You're 100% right. But you can't pretend they're not there. Because like take Sudan. You got the RSF, which is the old Janjaweed rebranded. They're the people that are butchering Black Africans every day. That genocide never stopped, and it just went back into high gear. The RSF is in a civil war with their other military buddy that they threw the last government out in 2019. Yeah. China is backing the government in Sudan. Russia is backing RSF. We're backing neither side. RSF is going to win because Russia has no qualms about doing whatever
China has no people on the ground. China's just simply giving them gear and food and supplies, but they're not involved in it. Wagner Group guys are in Darfur right now, and they are killing Black Africans on behalf of, again, the new Janjaweed, the RSF, the Rapid Strike Force, which sounds like something out of a fucking, like a script note stricken from the G.I. Joe movie. And they're doing. Why are they doing it?
I'm not laughing at that. I am not laughing at that.
Just the absurdity of it.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's the absurdity.
No,
of
what
it.
I'm laughing at is that Wagner guys are actually turning up dead.
Yes, that's true.
And
because
they're finding video being released on with Ukrainian. The Ukrainians have special forces there hunting Wagner. So yeah, we can't ignore this, because you're a smart guy, Hal. You're a smart guy. You know what happens when a country that borders half the Red Sea ends up being a Russian vassal state.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the interesting thing is, and I'm curious, because like in the news today, for example, there were a couple of things. Russia has, it's so funny. Russia has an egg problem right now. I don't know if people know this. So, all the talk about the price of eggs, right? That we've been dealing with in this country. Vladimir Putin tried this thing because they're running out of eggs. So he tried importing stuff. So they're like, Turkey got bird flu. The avian flu struck all these places. It's the same shit. It's rolling across. They have no protections against it. We do, and it's still fucked with our supply and drove the price up almost double for a short time. They have no protections against it.
Turkey does not have ConAgra or Archer Daniels Midland or anything like that.
Right. And you all the talk about Ukraine bioweapon facilities or facilities that they talked about, that they talk about, they're strictly for stopping wheat blight and shit like that from spreading, because they have so many farming groups there that if you have a particular like an ailment for either animals, livestock specifically, or any kind of crop that they have, they're dealing with it all the time. Any variant, they're always trying to nail that shit down because of the breadbasket of Europe and blah, blah. Okay. Russia has taken an RFK attitude towards food safety. And what it has resulted in is that their fucking birds died. And so they went to Turkey, which was following their lead, and did the same shit. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to look up the number. Yeah, egg prices rose 40% year on year, and 4.6% month on month in December. They tried to get fucking what?
Sorry, I don't do that.
Fucking now, not we dealt with this a year and a half ago, right? And we talked about this a bunch too, and the difference between disinflation and deflation. People need to know the difference. Deflation is when no one wants to buy your shit anymore, so you can't move it. Disinflation happens after supply-related inflation, meaning it's not the general cost that went up. It's because there's not enough supply for demand, so you can charge more for it because people will pay more to get to the front of the line to get more of it. So that creates monetary-based inflation based on people who want to jump to the front of the line. The United States, our primary inflation in the beginning was us jumping to the front of the line, buying shit over everything else.
See oil prices in the United States for the last year.
That's exactly right.
Perfect example.
And when you get to eggs, the restaurants bought them in bulk because they need eggs every day. You might want eggs every day. You might cook with them on occasion or use them to bake, but a restaurant's entire menu, even if they don't sell eggs, is predicated on whatever bakery stuff they have. They need it to do it. They need it as an emulsifier, all kinds of shit. And so they jump to the front of the line, and they have contracts with these companies to buy a certain number of eggs every month, always have. And the minute the supply goes down, the restaurants are guaranteed this, and then there's nothing left over to put in the fucking stores. And that's why the price goes up. And interesting factoid, people don't realize is people think that restaurants like get bargains on that stuff.
They don't. They pay more per egg than you do.
Right.
To get and that's why the egg suppliers are like, no, they get them first.
Right.
They're paying me 60 cents an egg. You're paying me 29 cents an egg. They're getting their eggs, man.
That's right. And we have a contract with them to guarantee the supply. That's why they pay more. If you're going to pay me more, like if I have to guarantee you and sign a contract that says I have to provide you with X number of eggs, regardless of what the fuck is going on, you got to pay me more to allocate that out. Because if we don't have a contract, you can buy some and not buy some, and I'm in the variability of the market. But once I lock something down, you want to be ahead of everybody else. You better guarantee a certain number and a certain price. Lock that shit in. That's how that stuff works. Okay, so it takes about, I want to say, 8 to 10 weeks for a chick to get to hen egg laying size, right? About 8 to 10 weeks, they could start laying eggs. And so after with all the price gouging talk we fucking heard about eggs during the time when avian flu hit, it wasn't fully cleared from the system. So there's a bunch of eggs being laid for new chickens, and then the chickens would be raised, and then there was a period where they'd have 100,000 new chickens, but 60,000 of them would die, but they had 40,000 more, but they didn't have enough to meet that supply. So we don't know if we're out of the woods yet. So the prices didn't fall.
Always that lag. Coming out of this.
Right. That lag was there, and we recognized it. And you'll notice, by the way, that a lot of Western countries, after we went through it, took precautions against it. And then even when they did have it, they isolated it. They, God love them, but they torched their chickens that had it and very quickly, and got live ones from other places, so they didn't fall into this pattern, right? Because
chicken got really cheap here. Because of exactly what you're talking about, Hal. That's why I love talking to you, my brother, because you know shit, man. I love talking to people that know shit. That's why chicken got really cheap here for a little bit. You can go buy chicken really freaking cheap right now because they didn't just raise enough chicks for eggs. They raised more than enough for exactly.
Because so you don't know how many are going to die.
What would normally be layers, they're selling dirt freaking cheap because they're not exactly the ideal carcass chicken. Carcass chickens are so big and fat that they have to actually slaughter them. You can't do anything else with them because their freaking legs will break. You know what I mean?
Like turkey. These are not turkeys that they grow, like these steroid turkeys, the Schwarzenegger turkeys that are just all meat and can't stand up, and they're so stupid that they'll drown in a thunderstorm because they'll look up at the noise and the water will go down their nose. I'm not kidding. They're that dumb. It's no wonder it puts you to sleep. You know how they say like eating cattle makes you act like cattle, which I don't believe, but whatever. People used to say that. I'm like, well, then eating turkey, you're not getting tryptophan. You're just being turned into an idiot instantly. Just like, I gotta lay down. I can't understand sports anymore. I gotta lay on the couch. So the chicken thing, I wanted to just an addendum to that. So the H5N1 is the one that's going through Russia and Turkey right now. That's the one we dealt with, and we knew it. We discovered it as it was happening. There was the only reason we had a slow roll in dealing with it was because we were still coming out of COVID, and we still didn't have everybody in government back to their regular jobs, going out and doing inspections. We didn't have everybody who worked at these plants paying fucking attention. They were shorthanded as well while trying to shuffle this shit through. So you had people going, fuck, we just got to get shit started. We only got 8 people, and there's for a 17-person job. And so they're shoving these things through, and they're just not checking because it can't, right? So that this particular H5N1 comes through, there's a, B subvariants that happen all the time that they keep an eye out for. And we recognize these things and then they hit and we can solve it. The Russians just decide not to. They just like, fuck it. And I don't even know who the fuck they would send to look for this shit anyways. Person's probably dead in a fucking crevice in Ukraine. Whoever they're like, yeah.
As a side note, you can absolutely fact check me here, man. People don't understand. They're like, why do we pander to Modi? Why do we get along with Z? Why do we put up with their shit? And exactly what you're talking about with the chickens. Mm-hmm. If that happens in China,
yep,
it is
everywhere.
Biblical in scale that what happens. So we work with China no matter what happens.
Yep.
And India, the same thing. No matter what happens politically, we work with them agriculturally to make sure that when we had bird flu, we were like, this shit is going to spread. It is going to spread worldwide. China cannot tolerate this. So China is not like Russia. They are not. They're like, okay, food, we can't screw around. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That was the only thing. That was the difference in COVID. Because quite frankly, most of the animal pathogens that the world has had to deal with have come out of China because of their overuse of antibiotics and their crowded farming conditions, because they fucked up their arable land. They don't have a lot of animal food, so they feed the animals back to them. They do all kinds of bullshit stuff like the mad cow disease issue that England had back in the day. I don't know who the fuck that guy. Can we ever hunt down that dude who raised his hand at the fucking meeting going like, why don't we just use the pulped leftover bone and brain bullshit and feed that back to the animals? That's cheap. Like some asshole, at a meeting raised his hand and suggested that shit. And they're like, I don't know, let's give it a shot. And then, fucking mad cow disease. But
the father of mad cow. Yeah.
Yeah. Who is that fucker? I know it's a person. I know we can boil it down to one dude who raised his hand at the fucking meeting, even if he heard it from somebody who was dumber than he was. So in China,
used to blow my mind about China, man. You mind if I ask you a question about that?
No.
Because you know 10 times what I do about China. I used to watch, I like agriculture. I like because politics, agriculture is politics. It just is.
Yes. Yeah.
I used to look at the amount of land they put into rape, that they would go rapeseed for fucking canola oil.
Yeah.
And it was just like, how do you grow that much of a product you can't eat? I mean, you can use canola oil. I mean, but you can't live off canola oil, but the massive amounts. And folks, it's gorgeous. Go look it up. Look it up on the internet. Look up rape crop. Rape, as in, you're raping somebody. The rapeseed oil is where canola. That's why they call it canola oil, because rape oil wouldn't sell. But I
don't know. It seems like the salad dressing at Mar-a-Lago,
China.
Sorry.
I'm going to hell, man. I'm laughing at so much bad shit today. Oh, my
absurd.
God.
We're laughing at the absurdity of it. We're okay. So, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing. China, and I've mentioned this a couple times, and you know this, but China imports 80% of their foodstuffs for allegedly 1.4 billion people, which is a bullshit number, but we'll float that for a second. I'm going with 800 million max. I think it's probably closer to 600 million at this point. There was a new Chinese mega city that they built, and they finally released pictures of it, and there's like 8 people in the fucking place. There's no fucking way. If you take a picture of New York City any time of the day, it's hard to get an empty street in New York, even at 2:00 in the morning, even at 4:00 in the morning when it's fucked up. You're like, if you wanted to get a long shot of a road that doesn't have a moving taxi in it, or a human being crossing the street, or somebody hanging around or yelling at you to stop taking fucking photographs on their street because it's New York, try it. Walk through New York, try to find one street where you're like, oh shit, I can see the end of the fucking horizon with this, and there's like nobody here. There are dozens of places you can do that in China, which are allegedly cities with 35 million people in it. Bullshit. Anyways, they have.
If I were president, everybody's like, Paul, you should run for president. If I was president, this is what I would do. This is what I would call
make me your Secretary of State.
Whoever was running China at the time, I would call them, say, okay, look, your pretend currency, your yuan pretend
Right.
inflation. Gotta
your
go.
yogurt card
But if you do
currency.
that, if you do that, I have a bunch of really old Americans that are on pensions that could live really well in your country and would inject massive amounts of capital into your empty frickin' cities.
Yes.
And they would buy these apartments, and you could sell them services, you could sell them, but you got to just get your human rights straight and stop with the fiat currency. You know.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of issues, obviously, right away about that. They won't even let the fucking Vietnamese into their country except to use them as slave labor, essentially.
Slave labor.
They'll abduct some of them, but they won't let them live there or whatever. There are myriads
Well,
of
they sell their own people as slaves. Go to a Saudi oil field.
Yeah, there's Mongolians, there's North Koreans who would love to get the fuck out of there, and China has a relationship with North Korea. If they were a little bit more porous, and because they're a little bit more free than North Korea, not much these days, but significantly enough where you can actually roam around, those fuckers could definitely move into those fucking cities. There are enough empty apartments in a single city, and name it, any big city in China, there are enough empty apartments to house nearly everyone in the country of Australia. 25 million people. There are 25 million empty apartments in almost every major city. Tianjin, Beijing, Nanjing, Chongqing, Chengdu, any of those fucking, empty rows of fucking empty buildings.
And the hilarious part is, go look at Chengdu real estate. Go look at Chengdu real estate. They think that they can put an apartment on the market for the same price as what you're paying for an apartment in frickin' New York City.
Right. It's Paris prices.
No.
What in the fuck? And they're supposed to be a communist country. I don't even know. The only thing communist about the country right now is that they just suck at capitalism. You cannot have that much supply and that little fucking demand and then try to charge like it's beachfront fucking property when it's an industrial apartment with no fucking windows, by the way. The windows haven't been installed. They're extra. So I guess you just stand in the breeze on the 75th floor of a rando building. You want to charge beachfront property, and this motherfucker is downwind from a chemical plant that is completely unregulated. I mean, the kind of deregulation that Donald Trump and Marjorie Taylor Greene clamor for. They just wish that just huge clouds of benzene and fucking toluene and all kinds of fucking cyanide, whatever the fuck, just blowing right into people's, I was going to say through their windows, but they don't even have the fucking windows, just right into the apartment. I don't. Yeah, it's amazing.
I try to explain this to people that there's regulation in China. Okay, this is regulation in China. There is none until something goes desperately wrong, until we have like a Bhopal, India, Union Carbide type accident. And then they go get the executives that run that factory and they hang them from the ceiling of that factory. And that's it. That's the regulation. Then some other idiot takes the job running the factory and hopes nothing goes wrong.
Yeah. So I was trying to look up a picture though. In Sichuan in China, a place called Wenchuan, there was a big earthquake in Sichuan province, and in 2008 there was the earthquake hit this particular town, and 5,335 students died because the schools they were in had no rebar in the walls of the schools because the guy who was contracted by the government kept the fucking rebar and sold the rebar to a buddy of his. Now, they shot that guy and billed his family for the bullet, which is what they, did pre-Xi Jinping. They would just kill you and bill your family for the cost of killing you.
13 cents, wasn't it?
Yeah. But at the same time, also, I don't know why it's your fucking family's fault. That's weird in and of itself. They put it on you. I guess it's a shame angle. Try to shame the name, essentially. 5,335 students crushed in buildings. that's simply just the dude had just sold all the rebar. And these are the people that are going to form a currency. And I'm not talking about Chinese people. I'm talking about the government officials and how the government runs. This is how shit is done. There's a system over there called guanxi. In China, it's all about guanxi. It's their version of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. It's all run that way. And most of it is like this graft kind of payoff scheme to look the other way until it goes south, and hopefully you can bug out or pass the burden to somebody else. If the bullshit House of Cards can stay up as long as you're alive or participating in it, and you can just get the fuck out, you're fine. But if there's an earthquake, it's going to cost you. That's how they do it. It's just fucking insane. Can you imagine the United States, one city, an earthquake happens during a school day, and 5,335 students are crushed to death? Like we wouldn't even be talking about the dude who sold the rebar. We'd be talking to everybody in that entire fucking chain. The governor of that fucking state would have to step down. The previous governor, when they were built, would have to step down. The zoning guy and the engineering people who worked on it, who were participants in it, the fucking construction company that was hired, they'd all go to fucking jail. Everybody.
Look at Miami right now. That building collapsed there. They're looking at the inspectors. They're looking.
That's right. Everybody.
They're all going to jail.
Right. And this and they just basically went. They walked up to this dude and went pow and were like, solved it. That's it. And it'll happen again. It'll fucking happen again. I've got a terrible story about that. Just if you got a minute.
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this one, but you remember when they got caught. Folks, you have fat in your poop. You do. You have fat in your poop.
That's what people think is the peanuts. Yeah, that's liver fat. When people think they have peanuts in their shit, that's liver fats. Right.
So there was a guy in China that was selling. He was the guy that sold oil to the street vendors.
Yes.
You remember that story? And he was sending people out. They were opening up the sewers with a big scooper, and they would find a fat deposit, and they were scooping the fat out of the sewer because he could get it from free. He didn't have to buy pig fat. And
as it breaks down on water, it rises to the surface of the water. The fat rises to the surface of the water, so they could skim it off the top.
Then they would take it outside the city to a farm, and they would render it down, filter it, and then resell it to the street vendors. And that's what all the street vendors were buying. They pretended they didn't know this was happening, but this guy's paying kickbacks all over the frickin' place.
Right.
But when it hit social media, that's when they started shooting people.
Right. That's when they start.
And like you said, problem solved. Problem solved. I would not eat at a street vendor in China if my life depended on it.
Okay, so I have eaten at street vendors in China in my life, and I also am aware that the funny part is that that's considered over the line, but the normal thing is to just reuse the cooking oil over and over again, some of it from the garbage. So they'll just take the oil that's in the bottom of the bag and squeeze that part out, and then they boil it, the fat stays, the water leaves, and then that's what's left or whatever. A couple of stories. So I'm in Beijing, first time I ever go there. It's 2001. And I'm hanging out with, I met some students that were there, these girls who were selling art on the street or whatever. And they, there's like this kind of running industry of like Chinese kids back then who would just like find a tourist and then tag along, and you'd feed them, and, they'd be your kind of de facto tour guides. It was fine. It was lovely. I bought some of their art. I still have it, whatever. Lovely. And there's a weird story about how one of them was listening unknowingly to a recording of my voice from Talk Soup in an attempt to learn English, and she didn't even know that's who I was. She just found this tape. One side was the songs of Richard Marx, and the other side was my voice talking from Talk Soup, because I have a very clear, I have a non-inflected English, American English accent, so it's pretty plain, right? So anyways, total random, very weird. So we go up to these booths, and there's the bao, which if you've never had bao, it's lovely. But it's in kung fu movies, I would always see guys eating bao, which is just, it's like their version of a burger, which it's just a rice bun with stuffing inside, food, or like usually, like most people know cha sui bao, which is the barbecued pork buns. It's just barbecued pork stuffed into this thing, and it's sweet, and it's in this very plain bun. It's lovely when it's done correctly, and it's really there. But at that point,
I like the squash.
Yeah, at that point, I was picky about what meat I would eat. I wasn't a vegetarian at that point, or even a pescatarian, but I didn't know quite what it was. And I literally went up and I went on a "这个包有什么肉," which means like what zai li, which means like what meat is in these bao. And the girl standing next to me didn't miss a beat, taps me on the shoulder and goes "buenti buenti," which means don't ask. Either eat it and forget it, or you don't want to know, because it's rude to make him lie.
Reminds me from Demolition Man, that scene from Demolition Man. Do you see any cows?
Right. Yes, right. So that's absolutely true. True story. Here's the other thing, and I was going to show this. It's interesting that our conversation came to this. I was going to show this as kind of like, okay. So there was a story going on when I first went to China. There was a story. There were lots of stories about people running up to backpackers and tourists in China with knives and slitting their backpacks like a fucking piñata. All your shit falls out, and then while you're turning around trying to figure out whatever, they scoop all your shit and bug out. And it was happening all over the place. It was just, and there was even a sort of a low rent warning from the State Department when you're a traveler going there. So I purchased this guy. This is the backpack that I took to China multiple times on my and I paid extra for the, like, now you can find these and they're relatively cheap or whatever, but you can put a bedroll right here, whatever. But the whole reason, the only fucking reason I got this thing is because you can't slit it and steal everything. That and it, by the way, it worked. I know nobody even tried or whatever. I heard of 2 other people while I was there that went through that shit. But this is my actual backpack that I carried with me. And by the way, it's these days walking around with a pride sticker or a no fear or any of that shit, like National Lampoon or whatever. If you walked around, yes, King's X and Pound Hound and Queensryche as well, but if you walked around with that shit, you would catch hell from the censors who were walking around. They would make you cover it up. They make you put something on top of it. Yeah. But it's still rock solid. You can tell how old this fucking thing is. See the cell phone holder that was on it is like for a flip phone. It's like for a giant Nokia, whatever. Now you put sunglasses in this fucking thing, and it was literally for a phone at the time.
Yeah, man, what the hell happened to Nokia, man? I mean, best phones in the world, and all of a sudden, boom, gone. I mean,
they went all in on the internal technology, and they, and away from the actual trying to sell the fucking things to, the actual phones themselves.
So we all still have Nokias. We just don't know we have Nokias.
Yes, there's a lot of Nokia licensed technology in a lot of shit. That said, and by the way, right now, well, I'll show you. Here's the article on it. Do this. This is China's worst deflation streak in 14 years puts pressure on the People's Bank of China. Oh, does it now? Thank you, Bluebird. It's putting pressure. Is it? Worst deflation streak in 14 years, and it's putting pressure. Is it putting pressure on them? They're freaking the fuck out. And again, difference between deflation and disinflation. Disinflation is you didn't have enough of something, so people were buying at a higher price. And then when you had enough of it, it went back to the normal price. That's how it works. That's how sales work. That's what fucking coupons are about. A coupon is a form of disinflation. Coupon is a singular form of disinflation. Instead of making it about money, we'll give you a coupon so you continue to buy our shit. We know the price can be brought down, but instead of bringing the price down permanently to match it, because it's going to cost us more later, we have too much of it right now. So to get rid of that excess stock that we know is coming, because these chickens make these eggs, and these eggs make that mayonnaise, and that mayonnaise lasts this long. We're going to give you a coupon for mayonnaise that's good for the next 3 months. Because 6 months ago when this shit started, we knew we were going to have too much. But we can't shut it down because we'll have too little when everybody's buying a lot of mayonnaise late in the summer. That kind of shit. That's how all this stuff works.
Which is why America rarely, if never, has empty grocery shelves.
That's right. Right. Unless it's toilet paper during lockdown, because people are afraid of wiping their ass with newspaper or buying a bidet. Because the last thing I'm going to do, man, is do something French. I'm not going to do it. I ain't going to do it. So anyways, disinflation is, hey, we didn't have enough of that, and everybody was charging through the nose for it. Now we have plenty. There's a lot of extra. The price is coming down. You can argue that I've been saying inaccurately for a while. I always say technology is deflationary, inherently deflationary, but it's technically disinflationary, because technology, you get more for the same price over time, or the price goes down. One or the other, all the time. Everything. Think of what it used to cost to have an electric fucking blender in your house. Jesus Christ, especially a commercial grade, the ones they sell at like Sur La Table or whatever. It was like $800 when they were in restaurants. Then they went to $600 when there were only a few of them. Now you can get one like around the holidays for $150. This is the same fucking one. It's the same one they use in the restaurants, and you can buy it for that. That's what it is. The production of it, the making of it, the use of it, the quality of it improves all the time, and the price goes down. That's disinflation.
Yeah, I'm going to confess something here, Hal. Bidets.
Yeah.
Ron White made it okay. He said, joked about how he got a bidet. I'm like, okay, honey, do it. We bought one. And now anytime I'm anywhere where they don't have a bidet, I feel like a freaking barbarian.
Yes, right.
My ass is sparkling clean all the time.
Fantastic. And
Unless I have
you
to go
clearly know how
somewhere.
to use the 3 seashells in Demolition Man. You don't have to go over and cuss at the cuss board printer or whatever. You asshole duck fucking piece of shit. Whatever. Where's he going? Just wipes his ass with the receipts.
People, they sell seats now. You don't have to replumb your bathroom. They sell seats now that you can buy that are badass. They're heated. You get a bidet. It is just get one. Get one.
I installed one. I installed one for in my house for my son's mother while she was going through the pregnancy and all that kind of stuff. So I'm well aware of how I installed one for her. And I was like, after she was done and moved out and all that kind of stuff, I was like, glad this is here. Glad this is good. I've only got you for a couple more minutes. By the way, love you, Texas Paul. You're awesome. Glad you could be here, and I'm so proud that I finally I was surprised that I was able to use my special Texas flag blowing in the wind background. That. Absolutely. Right away. And if anybody has any ideas for one for Boston Brian that wouldn't be offensive to him as a person, somebody's saying, did I try the bidet? Did I try it? I mastered it. What are you talking about?
Oh my God, man.
Yeah. No.
I'm just freaking get one, people. Get one. I'm telling you, my ass is sparkling clean.
I will take your word
all
for
the
it.
time. I look at you people that take wadded up pieces of toilet paper to clean yourselves, and I'm like, you filthy barbarians.
Right. It's like
you filthy barbarians.
It's like meeting a time traveler from the Dark Ages. They have bidets. Yes. Somebody pointed out they have bidets at Walmart. Totally an excellent point. That's
not my Walmart.
Huh?
Not my Walmart.
You got to go to the mega store, I guess, right? You got to go. Yeah. Yeah. They have a garden department, don't they? Just get a hose. Hey, man, we just got an outhouse and a garden hose, man. I'm practically French. Come on. And obviously I can't do it to myself. So I have a thing rigged up where I run a wire follow me on this one. I got a handle that the grip for the hose goes into, right? The thing I use to hose down the dog when he gets out of control. And I got that, and I got this one of them gripper toys my kid had, and I ran a wire down. I put some eyelets down this wall and across the yard, put a couple stakes in the ground, wrap that shit around that one, wrap that shit around that one, runs up to this whole thing, and then I got a wooden little step pedal like that or whatever, and I just bend over, rest my hands on my knees like a dignified human being, and stomp that pedal. And let me tell you, you want to talk squeaky clean, this is something most people
River
are never gonna know the joys of. Let me tell you. So yeah, it's
and guys,
I'm only half kidding.
I'm not a snob. Bidet toilet seats are not expensive. You just don't know they're out there. Go get one. They're heated. They're warm.
Yes. There's a lot to them. My buddy Dave Hill has one of the best bits about bidets you will ever hear. It's a long, drawn-out bit about his first experience with one in Japan, which are like computerized and have all kinds of like aiming technology in them, and like it's amazing. Anyways, he almost missed his show because of it, and that was the just go listen to the bit. One of my first jokes ever was about bidets, which I think was, and I was in high school at the time. I think it was like, the French use bidets because they don't want their ass to be as smelly as the rest of them, or something like that. It was like, that was a general. It says, the rest of my body can stink, except not my pupil. That is too much. A line, my armpits, my breath, everything, garlic and BO is fine, but not that one. That's where I draw the line, you know?
And, you know, just a PSA, if you do get you one, don't go to the highest setting, because it's like pressure washing your bunghole. And don't do that.
Work your way
up.
Don't
do that.
And I would imagine that if you do work your way up to it, I would think it's sort of like medication. You know, you got to bring yourself down over time, or whatever. Don't, a little dribble isn't going to solve it anymore. You're just going to feel, you're not going to be able to maintain the high, is what he's saying.
Man, I'm telling you, I'm the worst now. Honey, we have to go home. Why?
Yeah, right. I cannot. Yeah.
We have to go home.
I cannot penguin walk over to the sink and try to get one leg up onto this sink at a party at a friend's house while trying to I can't even turn on the thing. There's no room in their guest bathroom. You know, like what? You come back out there and like,
and
what
guys,
are you doing? I'm taking
I'm
the toilet
not
paper
some
rolls and
snob.
lining
You
them
can
with
get
plastic.
these cheap. Go get one.
Mm-hmm. Well, and they are, I will say, they are great if you have somebody in the family who has a medical issue or any of that kind of stuff, or a family member who comes over who might have one. Believe me, they will be happy to know that you have one, even if you don't need it or use it yourself all that time. There'll be the one relative where they don't bring it up to you, they don't talk about it, they don't, because it's a personal issue, something they have, and they have one at home because it's, doctor's orders and all that kind of stuff. And then they go into your bathroom and they're like, oh, thank God, oh, thank Jesus. Oh yes, all right. Yep. I'm gonna be all right. I can visit here now. And Uncle Sam, he's coming to Christmas more often. It's a nice thing. I think he's decided to open up. Well, it's because his ass is broken and he didn't know you had the right machine for the broken ass thing he's got. He's happy now. He's real good. He feels like he can eat anything and just do it. All right. So on that note, we have a minute left, and I want to thank you for coming on. Follow Texas Paul on all your socials and your medias, and it's realtexaspaul.com, the website. Is that right?
Yes, sir. realtexaspaul.com.
There you go. And then, so here's the thing about Texas, and we'll end on this story. I'm sure it's a rant that will deliver us to the rest of the day. Abbott is stopping Customs and Border Patrol from being near parts of the border.
1 minute left.
I know. Well, oh yeah, wind you up. They because they're cutting the concertina wire, they're cutting the razor wire because it's illegal and it hurts civilians. And I don't know why these assholes want a child to crawl through that shit. And you want to be responsible for their medical bills because you're breaking international law. I'm dead serious. And Texas will. The U.S. government won't. They'll sue Texas and win. It's the dumbest fucking thing.
My thing is, if it ever makes it to the Hague, turn that fucker over.
Right.
Turn him over.
Right. Well, we have so many people in line for that, including Vladimir Putin, that the people who've been wounded are never even going to get a hearing after all the people who've been decimated and wiped out in general. The number of crossings has gone down, largely due to, because it always spikes during certain parts of the year and weather. But the Biden administration has, they've done the Department of Homeland Security has enhanced, is attributing the drop to three things: enhanced enforcement actions by Mexico, including on trains and buses, meaning that we are working with them to identify the flow of migrants across Mexico on buses and trains, and they're taking responsibility for that because we don't have remain in Mexico, but we return people to Mexico all the time, all day, every day. And I don't, just because the people who seek asylum and actually have been adjudicated and are allowed to do that are allowed to stay, or have somebody who will sponsor them in the States, which are the people who come through, those people, because they come through, they think we're not rejecting anybody. 80% of the people who come across are immediately rejected still. Once they have a quick trial, they have a quick little hearing, and then if they go,
Can I throw a quick point out?
Yep, they're like, bullshit, bye, and they turn them around and they go, here's your file. If you're in danger, we'll let you in, but you're not in danger. We don't think you're in danger. So here's a little file. Go file in your country and then come back in a couple of years. We'll give you one shot. You come by twice, you can never be a citizen. You can never enter the country legally ever again, and that's why they're going home. That's why the number goes down. Then they've added, Mexico is moving migrants along the northern border to the southern border. So not only are they stopping them from coming up on trains and buses, they are busing them and putting them on trains back to the southern border because that's where they came from. And they're reinstating the deportations of Venezuelans, which they were not doing at all for a while, which is very curious. They just stopped bothering deporting Venezuelans, and now they're back to doing it.
Well, the violence. There was a lot of violence in Venezuela.
That's right.
But can I make a quick point, just 10 seconds?
Mm-hmm.
We have added so many Border Patrol agents. We're not overwhelmed at our southern border. We're not. We're not even close. If you look at the number of engagements per agent, which is what you would judge whether you're overwhelmed or not, they are half now what they were 20 years ago. We used to only have like 5,000-6,000 agents down there. We've got 30,000 agents down there now.
Right.
The number of engagements per agent is half what it was 20 years ago. We are not overwhelmed at ourselves. It's a lie.
Yeah.
It is a lie.
Well, and also,
just so you know,
I do you think there's a Midas Touch is live streaming the Fulton County case. Okay, I'll let you guys go to that in just 1 second. But do you think there's a case of, because we know that recidivism is responsible for a large number of people during Title 42, and so that people would try 8-10 times. So the same person was being counted 8 or 10 times, and that's where Trump gets his 15 million number, because a million people over the course of 3 years trying to cross 10 times. That's what it's talking about, and pretending he doesn't know better. Maybe he doesn't because he's a fucking moron. But there's also this. Numbers like each agent, you got a lot more agents. You're an agent, I'm an agent. We're both standing where we see the same person. We both write in our report, we saw person A. According to Republicans, 2 people were seen instead of 2 people saw 1 person. That's also part of it. And the states that run the border get a lot of funding and all kinds of stuff. That's largely a way that they supplement their budgets and patch budget holes, is because they use, discretionary funds, put all that stuff on there, use it for law enforcement. A lot of the law enforcement in Texas in general is paid for through border funds, because they're like, well, we have to have there's a certain amount of work the sheriffs have to do looking to find people who made it across and all that kind of stuff. So they use that to pad their budget so they don't have to pay for their, the law enforcement cost, which is a very high cost for anywhere. They get more of the militarized gear. They get more guns and ammo and stuff like that than any other police force in the United States. So they almost free, essentially, from the rest of the taxpayers, because they're a border state. And somebody just put bidet 2024 mod med. Yeah,
we need the people.
Yeah.
And we need the people desperately. We are an
Right.
aging population. We can't birth our way out of that. The other white countries that are acceptable to Republicans are in the same boat we are. They don't have the immigrants to send us anyways. We need the people. Period. This is insane what we're doing
the
at the border.
interesting thing is Mexico actually needs the people. And that's part of what's actually happening. Mexico, the cost of labor in Mexico is now lower than the cost of Chinese labor. And that's why so much production, especially for the American market, from international companies and companies even in the United States, in terms of manufacturing and production, is happening in Mexico. And they need the labor. That's one of the other reasons why they've reversed course and not had them come in the United States. Because, we have short-term migrant workers who come here to, for crop harvesting and that kind of stuff. Well, a lot of that is going to be robotic in a couple of years. Have you seen all the advances in robots picking fucking strawberries and apples, and they can tell which ones are rotten and ripe and all that kind of stuff? Like, that's over soon. But there's a certain level of physical production, especially in construction, that robots and automation are not going to be able to do for a very long time. Decades. It's coming, but not for decades. And all that shit is going to be in Mexico. And so, and they already speak Spanish, a good portion of them. That's what they're doing. And our relationship with them is tariff and trade. And we have a back and forth with you. But if the border with you is so porous that dangerous people can get through, we can't do business with you. We got to make a decision. And it's like Target closing a store after it's been, robbed too many times. That's really what's going on at the border. It's not about overwhelming. It's not about this kind of shit. Our relationship with Russia, Trump said the dumb way of describing it, but that's the way it's been for a while. NAFTA and USMCA are basically the same shit. And so that's what's occurring right now. We're just going, look, you got to watch the border so that we can continue trade. Because if you let somebody in that kills a bunch of us or whatever, that's fucking with our shit. And they're going, you're absolutely right. We'd rather do that kind of trade with you than, and even the fentanyl stuff. Mexico's pushing back on the fentanyl stuff because they're killing their consumer base in the future. That's you can't have people turn on made in Mexico the way they turned on made in China. And they're aware of that. And it's a struggle they have because Mexico is two countries as well. We'll talk about that next time. How about this? Next time we have Texas Paul on the show, let's have a Texas-Mexico primer on the reality of both the geography of Mexico and the politics of Mexico, mixed with the colorism and the racism that's in that country and their relationship to a similar behavior type for people who come into Texas and live there, the Mexicans that are leaving Mexico to come to Texas, and the fact that it's not just the same people that go to Montana or fucking, to pick oranges in California or something. It's different human beings with different goals and different beliefs. And they have a lot more in common these days with like Cuban refugees, I would argue. We'll talk about that, and the fact that Texas's economy would collapse if we shut the border like they asked for on the next one. But you're awesome.
The idiocy of what's going on down there is just,
it's
weird. Gobsmacking.
Right. We'll and I think it's got to be a bigger story. The border stuff has got to be a bigger story because you're going to see a lot of people. They're going to use a lot of this footage of people coming here, but they're not showing, and they'll show you like millions of people are crossing the border, and they'll show you 200 people in a fucking gymnasium in New York, and the disconnect between the size of those numbers never seems to land. There's not 200 people in every gymnasium in an American school or every major city's one. It happens one event, and then some people just can't weigh that against it. We got like that. It has got to be part of the conversation about the border this year and how ultimately, I think quite frankly, regardless of Mike Johnson stuff, we're going to see an immigration border bill passed in some form. And the Biden administration is going, look, even working with these assholes, I was able to pass, border reform that's got this. Oh shit, I've run out of fingers. So, yep. Thanks so much, brother. Follow realtexaspaul.com, and of course, that'll give you all the links to all of his places, and follow his shiny ass wherever he goes. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks so much, brother.
Take care, my friend.
Absolutely. There he goes, Texas Paul. Texas Paul, yeah. Texas Paul. All right. So, yeah, obviously a huge conversation. I want to thank Carolee and from Crooks and Liars for coming, and Texas Paul for popping on today. I'm gonna have a regular show later on this afternoon. Then we got radio tomorrow, and there's so much to talk about. And hopefully Johnny Million's feeling better, and so he'll be with me on the show tomorrow. Regular show this afternoon. So get used to the idea. It's gonna be a party. All right. Yeah, I would do a cat break, but one of my cats has literally she was crying outside the door earlier, and I think she just went back upstairs. She just gave up on me. So I'll go check. We'll see if we can have a cat drop later on. Take care of yourself. Take care of everybody. Okay, bye everybody. Especially people on Instagram. Look at that. We were on Instagram today. It was pretty cool. It was cool. Now I'm off to the bidet store.